travel is no longer simply about vacation. It has become a significant political statement. A striking example is emerging from the relationship between Canada and the United States, as Canadian tourists are increasingly boycotting U.S. travel due to growing political tensions. Every year, millions of Canadians traditionally cross the border, from Florida's sunny beaches to New York's bustling streets, contributing billions of dollars to American local economies. However, recent developments indicate a seismic shift in this pattern, leading to serious economic consequences. The Old Orchard Beach Tourism Council reports that Canadians typically make up about 40% of the tourists visiting Maine's popular destinations. But this year, over 90% of Canadian tourists have canceled their trips, according to local hotel owners such as Sterling Morse. The loss of this vital tourist demographic has dramatically impacted local businesses, many of which have historically depended heavily on Canadian visitors. These cancellations are more than a financial setback. They signify a weakening of the long-standing economic partnership between the neighboring countries. What's driving this drastic change? Primarily, it's the escalating political tension and hostile rhetoric from political leaders, notably in the United States, that has turned travel decisions into statements of national pride. Canadians have traditionally viewed U.S. travel as symbolic of a peaceful, respectful partnership, but this relationship has been severely strained. The boycott represents more than a mere reaction to unfavorable policies. It has become a calculated act of protest against the political stances of the current American administration. Economically, the impact is profound. According to the Maine Tourism Council, Canadian tourists contribute approximately $1.2 billion annually to Maine's economy alone. Their spending goes beyond hotels, extending into shops, restaurants, and local attractions. The absence of these visitors places many small businesses at severe risk, potentially forcing closures or significant operational scalebacks during peak tourist seasons. Industries such as transportation, retail, and lodging are also suffering, as their operations rely on the consistent influx of Canadian tourism revenue. This economic disruption highlights a broader reality. Tourism is increasingly recognized as a form of soft political power. When tourists choose to boycott a country, they're not rejecting tourist attractions or local hospitality. They're explicitly objecting to governmental policies and statements. Canadian tourists, through their decisions, are delivering a clear message of dissatisfaction to the U.S. administration. Given that Canadian tourists historically represent such a substantial portion of the market in areas like Old Orchard Beach, the economic ramifications will likely be long-lasting and severe. This trend isn't isolated. It signals the possibility of broader international repercussions. Other countries observing Canada's boycott could be inspired to use tourism similarly, leveraging their citizens' travel decisions as expressions of political dissent. Such movements could further complicate international relations, transforming tourism from a neutral exchange of cultures into a battleground of national values and political ideologies. The ongoing tensions between the U.S., Europe, and Canada underscore a broader realignment of global economic and diplomatic relations. Recent trade disputes have intensified tensions dramatically, particularly President Trump's implementation of heavy tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from Canada and the EU. These measures, aimed at protecting American industries, have backfired politically and economically, prompting severe retaliatory actions from traditional allies. Europe's response has been robust, imposing retaliatory tariffs targeting politically sensitive U.S. products, particularly those originating from states pivotal to the administration's political support. European Union Commission. President Ursula von der Leyen declared that the EU would not tolerate protectionist measures and would respond firmly to defend fair trade practices. This sentiment is shared by Canada, which implemented retaliatory tariffs totaling nearly 30 billion Canadian dollars on U.S. products, significantly impacting industries that rely heavily on Canadian materials, such as automotive and consumer goods sectors. Simultaneously, Canada has strategically pivoted away from reliance on the U.S. by enhancing trade relations and military cooperation with European and Asia-Pacific nations. Through agreements like the Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, bilateral trade has increased significantly, prompting Canada to further diversify its economic alliances. Additionally, Canada has made substantial defense investments with European partners, purchasing military equipment from Sweden and Australia, further decreasing its dependence on U.S. defense supplies. The impact on U.S. businesses and workers cannot be overstated. Regions that have traditionally benefited significantly from Canadian tourism and investments, such as Florida, New York, Arizona, Nevada, and California, are now facing severe economic repercussions. Real estate markets have cooled, with Canadians hastily selling their U.S. properties, while tourism-dependent local economies face declining revenues and potential job losses. For Canada, this shift represents more than economic self-interest. It is an expression of national identity and autonomy. Canadian consumers and businesses have consciously opted to realign their partnerships and spending away from the United States. Through quiet yet decisive actions, Canada is sending a powerful message. Cooperation and respect must underpin international relationships, and countries will not passively accept policies that undermine their sovereignty or economic interests. As geopolitical dynamics continue evolving, Canada's strategy may serve as a model for other nations considering similar actions. The growing trend of using tourism and trade as diplomatic tools underscores the complexity of contemporary global relations. Countries around the world may now follow suit, recognizing the power of collective consumer action to effect political change. With international tensions showing no signs of abating, and the economic implications of Canada's boycott becoming increasingly evident, the next phase of international diplomacy could see tourism and economic alliances employed more strategically than ever before. For the United States, this is a critical moment, one that demands a reassessment of international policies and partnerships, or risk deeper economic isolation. In the global context, this isn't merely a story of tourism decline or trade disputes. It's indicative of a potentially transformative shift in international relations. The days when tourism could be viewed simply as leisure are fading. In this new era, travel choices are expressions of national values, sovereignty, and respect, and countries worldwide are paying close attention. How these dynamics evolve will significantly shape global economic stability and diplomatic interactions for years to come.